Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Eclipsed Effigy of Ryde. Holly stood at the edge of the clearing, her breath fogging in the crisp evening air as she gazed at the newly erected monument in the center of Ryde. The towering stone effigy, crafted to commemorate the upcoming solar eclipse, cast long, eerie shadows as the setting sun bathed it in a fiery glow. The townsfolk had come together to celebrate this rare celestial event, but there was something about the effigy that unsettled Holly. She couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just a simple monument. The Isle of Wight was known for its scenic beauty and tranquil life, but there was an undercurrent of ancient mysticism that had always intrigued Holly. Growing up, she had heard tales of the island's druidic past and the old magic that was said to linger in its forests and hills. As a child, she had spent hours exploring the hidden nooks and crannies of the island, searching for signs of the supernatural. Now, as an adult, she felt that same sense of curiosity pulling her toward the effigy. The townspeople had named it the Eclipsed Effigy of Ryde, and it stood over 12 feet tall, carved from a single massive stone. Its features were hauntingly beautiful, with intricate patterns etched into its surface, spiraling and intertwining in a way that seemed almost alive. At its center was a large, circular indentation, where a polished obsidian disc had been placed to represent the eclipsed sun. As the days passed and the eclipse drew nearer, strange things began to happen around the monument. Holly, ever the skeptic, dismissed the initial reports as overactive imaginations. But when her friend Sarah came to her, pale and trembling, with a story of shadowy figures moving around the effigy at night, Holly decided to investigate. It was a cool, clear night when Holly made her way to the clearing, armed with a flashlight and a sense of determination. The moon hung high in the sky, casting an otherworldly light over the landscape. As she approached the effigy, she felt a chill run down her spine. The air seemed to hum with energy, and the shadows around the monument appeared to twist and shift in the moonlight. Holly shone her flashlight over the effigy, and the beam illuminated the intricate carvings that seemed to ride under the light. She stepped closer, her heart pounding in her chest. As she reached out to touch the stone, she felt the sudden jolt of electricity, and the flashlight flickered and died. She stumbled back, her hand tingling where she had touched the effigy. In the darkness, Holly heard a low, whispering sound. It seemed to come from all around her, echoing through the clearing. She strained to make out the words, but they were in a language she didn't understand. The whispers grew louder, and she felt a sense of dread wash over her. Desperate to escape, Holly turned and ran, but the ground seemed to shift beneath her feet. She stumbled and fell, her hands scraping against the rough earth. As she struggled to rise, she saw them shadowy figures emerging from the darkness, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. They moved silently, their forms flickering like smoke. Holly's breath caught in her throat as the figures closed in. She scrambled to her feet and ran, her heart pounding in her ears. The whispers grew louder, and she felt a cold hand brush against her shoulder. She screamed and pushed herself harder, her legs burning with the effort. She burst through the trees and into the safety of her home, slamming the door behind her. She leaned against it, panting, her mind racing. She didn't know what she had seen, but she knew she had to warn the others. The effigy was more than just a monument, it was a beacon, drawing dark forces to Ryde. The next day, Holly gathered her friends and told them what had happened. Some were skeptical, but others had experienced strange occurrences themselves. Together, they decided to investigate further. They delved into the town's history, uncovering old records and forgotten lore. They learned that the site where the effigy now stood had once been a place of dark rituals, a focal point for ancient rites meant to harness the power of the eclipse. As the day of the eclipse approached, the strange occurrences grew more frequent and more terrifying. People reported seeing shadowy figures in their homes, hearing whispers in the night, and feeling an overwhelming sense of dread. The town was gripped by fear, and Holly knew they had to act quickly. On the night of the eclipse, Holly and her friends gathered at the clearing, armed with what knowledge they had gained. The moon began to pass in front of the sun, and a deep, unnatural darkness fell over the land. The effigy seemed to come alive, its carvings glowing with an eerie light. The shadows around it twisted and writhed, forming into grotesque shapes. Holly and her friends formed a circle around the effigy, holding hands and chanting the ancient words they had found in the old texts. The ground shook and the air crackled with energy. The shadowy figures emerged from the darkness, their eyes burning with a malevolent light. They closed in, their whispers filling the air. Holly felt a surge of power as the eclipse reached its peak. She shouted the final words of the chant, and a blinding light erupted from the effigy. The shadowy figures screamed and writhed, dissolving into nothingness as the light consumed them. When the light faded, the effigy stood silent and still, its power spent. The darkness lifted, and the sun reappeared, bathing the land in a warm, golden light. Holly and her friends stood in stunned silence, their hearts pounding with the realization that they had faced something truly evil and emerged victorious. The town of Ryde slowly returned to normal, but the memory of that night lingered. The effigy remained a silent reminder of the darkness that had once threatened to consume them. Holly knew that the island's ancient magic was still strong, and she vowed to keep watch, ready to face whatever might come next. And as the years passed, the tales of the eclipsed effigy of Ryde became legend, a story of courage and unity in the face of unimaginable terror. The townspeople never forgot the power of the eclipse and the dark forces it had unleashed, and they lived in quiet vigilance, ever watchful for signs of the supernatural. Holly couldn't shake the feeling that their victory was temporary. The effigy still stood, a stone sentinel etched with power, and while the immediate threat had been vanquished, the ancient darkness that had stirred seemed to lie in wait, biding its time. Holly felt it in her bones, a lingering unease that whispered of unfinished business. Months passed, and Ryde slipped back into its sleepy, coastal routine. The tourist season arrived, bringing with it an influx of visitors eager to experience the island's charm. Life moved on, and the eclipse became a distant, unsettling memory. But for Holly, vigilance had become second nature. She spent her evenings poring over the old texts, seeking any clue that might hint at the effigy's true nature and the forces it had attracted. One late autumn evening, as a cold wind swept in from the sea, Holly sat in her small, cluttered study, surrounded by stacks of ancient tomes and yellowed manuscripts. Her fingers traced over a particularly brittle page, her eyes narrowing as she deciphered the faded script. The text spoke of a ritual, a binding spell that could seal away dark entities indefinitely. But it required a key, an artifact long lost to time. Determined to find this artifact, Holly reached out to Sarah and the rest of her friends. They gathered once more, a small but resolute group, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Their first step was to consult with the island's oldest residents, hoping to glean any forgotten lore or hidden knowledge about the artifact. They interviewed elders, searched through old family records, and scoured local folklore. Their quest led them to an ancient, overgrown graveyard on the outskirts of Ryde, a place rarely visited and steeped in mystery. Among the crumbling tombstones and weathered mausoleums, they discovered a crypt belonging to a family rumored to have been guardians of powerful relics. The entrance was sealed with a heavy stone slab, engraved with runes similar to those on the effigy. It took the combined effort of the group to shift the stone slab, revealing a dark, narrow staircase descending into the earth. Holly's flashlight pierced the gloom, revealing cobwebs and dust-covered steps. Steeling themselves, they descended into the crypt, the air growing colder and damper with each step. At the bottom, they found a chamber filled with ancient artifacts, chalices, amulets, and scrolls. But in the center of the room, on a pedestal, lay what they had been searching for, a small, intricately carved box made of dark wood and inlaid with silver. Holly carefully lifted the box, feeling a strange warmth emanate from it. Inside, nestled in velvet, was a gemstone that seemed to pulse with an inner light. "This must be it," Holly whispered. "The key to the binding ritual, with the artifact in hand." The night was eerily calm, the air heavy with anticipation. As they approached the effigy, the stone seemed to glisten in the moonlight, as if aware of their presence. They formed a circle around the effigy once more, Holly at the center holding the artifact. She began to chant the words of the binding spell, her voice strong and clear. The gemstone in the box glowed brighter, casting an ethereal light over the clearing. The carvings on the effigy seemed to writhe and twist, reacting to the spell. The ground trembled, and a low, menacing growl echoed through the air. Shadowy figures began to emerge from the darkness, their forms more defined and solid than before. Holly's friends joined in the chant, their voices merging in a harmonious blend of determination and fear. As the spell reached its climax, a brilliant beam of light shot from the gemstone, striking the effigy. The stone absorbed the light, the carvings glowing fiercely. The shadowy figures let out an unearthly wail as they were drawn toward the effigy, their forms distorting and collapsing into the stone. The light intensified, blinding in its brilliance. Holly felt a surge of energy pass through her, and with a final, resounding word, the spell was complete. The gemstone dimmed, and the effigy stood silent and still once more. The shadowy figures were gone, and an overwhelming sense of peace settled over the clearing. Exhausted but triumphant, Holly and her friends collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily. The night was come, the danger seemingly past. They had sealed away the dark forces, ensuring that the effigy would no longer serve as a beacon for malevolent entities. In the days that followed, Holly could feel the difference. The air around the effigy no longer buzzed with dark energy, and the whispers had ceased. Ryde returned to its peaceful existence, the townspeople unaware of the battle that had been fought to protect them. Holly kept the artifact safe, knowing that vigilance was still necessary. The island's ancient magic was a force to be respected and understood, and she was determined to safeguard it. The eclipsed effigy of Ryde became a symbol of the town's resilience, a reminder of the power of unity and the enduring strength of the human spirit. As the years passed, Holly's story became legend, a tale told around campfires and in whispered conversations. The clearing remained a place of quiet reflection, where the effigy stood as a sentinel watching over the town. And Holly, ever vigilant, continued to explore the island's mysteries, ready to face whatever dark forces might arise from the shadows. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had a great day.